Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Scots on the Run podcast, where we take a behind-the-scenes look at what's happening in the Gordon College cross-country and track and field programs. In this episode, we're previewing the first of two big meets to close out our season, conference championships, which we're hosting again this year for the first time since 2018. We don't have a guest this week, but as always, Coach Miela is here with me. Coach, how's it going?
Good, man. You know, it's exciting. It's always exciting this time of year. A little more stressful hosting because you're just dealing with some of those logistics. Fortunately, I mean, my role, I'm hoping to kind of take off some of that stress off of Gordon's shoulders and allow him to kind of lead the way with the team. And we're excited to host, excited to have our team and our kids be able to run in the woods like they know like the back of their hands. So,
well, the first thing that I want to discuss is kind of flashback to the last time we hosted conferences. That was my sophomore year, and I just went back. I found the old press releases or race recaps from our website. The women's begins with withstanding some of the worst weather New England has to offer. The men's begins with despite grueling conditions.
Yeah.
And I just looked at the forecast for Saturday, and right now, even though it's the end of October, almost November, it is going to be 79 degrees and not a cloud in the sky, they're saying at the moment. I understand it's a few days out, things can still change, but looks like it's going to be polar opposite weather-wise the last time we hosted conferences. So, Coach, obviously it's going to be unseasonably warm at this point of the year. Does that affect how you're going to coach your runners going into the championship here and what kind of mindset they'll have?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think as an athlete, sometimes you look at things, anything that throws you off your game, it has a tendency to want to create that anxiety. And I think our job as coaches is just to keep athletes focused on how good they really are, keep them focused on the training that they've done to this point, remind them how all their fitness isn't going to go away because it's almost 80 degrees on Saturday, right? But, there'll be some things that we'll do in practice over the next few days to try and help prepare them for that. I really do think that it's not a day of, especially in a sport like ours, it's not a day of adjustment that you make necessarily, right? It's more about preparing yourself in practice for those moments, right? And so what you're trying to do on Saturday really needs to be prepared for on Tuesday and Wednesday leading up to it.
Well, it's Tuesday now. It'll be Wednesday by the time everybody's hearing this. But what do the next couple of days of practice? Obviously, you've started your taper at this point. You don't want to be pushing too hard right before one of your biggest meets of the year. What does practice look like for the next few days as you get ready for conference?
Yeah, so yesterday wasn't too bad. It's a medium long run for us. Today's going to be nice and easy, pretty smooth. And then Wednesday we'll be doing some repeats out on the course, and and that's where we're going to talk to the athletes and see. Again, it's all about, like I said, it's about preparing athletes for the race in practice. And so for us, we might have some kids run some long sleeves, try to get their body heat up a little higher than it would when it's going to be 65 degrees outside like it is tomorrow. Let's just get them to feel it. That's really all you need is, like you said, you want to keep them confident, so you want them to feel that in practice so that when it comes to the race on Saturday, they're ready to rock.
It reminds me, I would do that sometimes in high school. I'd run practice in long sleeves so that I could get used to running in the heat, so that if it was a hot day, it actually ended up doing that for the first time because one of my teammates forgot his workout shirt, and I had a spare T-shirt in my backpack, but I only had a long sleeve shirt then for myself, so I had to do it that day to help him out, and then just decided, I actually kind of like training like this. Why don't I just
sacrifice it for the team?
Yeah.
Ben. Well, I wanted to, before we move on, so you ran at the last one when there was like a nor'easter or whatever. Do you remember that race?
I do. And I still, despite the weather conditions, I think I set a then PR for myself. And that's what I've been telling a couple of the, athletes just throughout the last couple of weeks. I can tell you as somebody who's run this course for conference championships, that home course advantage is very, very real.
Totally.
When you know the course like the back of your hand, and when you know that you've got the home crowd cheering you on all throughout the course, those kinds of things play no small factor in how well you're going to run, how motivated you're going to be to go out there and perform your best. And so I think that's definitely something that we were able to play to our advantage a little bit, and I hope the team can do the same thing on Saturday.
I hope so too, man. And I love that you brought that up because our course will throw a lot at you. We start right in the middle of our campus, and there's going to be, hopefully, we hope to see a lot of our home crowd there. We hope to see professors and things out there cheering us on. But that's right on the quad, and then we go into the woods, and there's parts where there's inclines, there's declines, there's sharp turns. There are some roots and some rocky parts, but then there's some flat, really nice parts. And then even in some of those parts, it gets narrow, it gets wide. And so knowing the course like our athletes do, to your point, again, it gives them a huge advantage of knowing when to push, knowing where they need to be before getting to like a huge narrow stretch where it's hard to pass, that type of stuff. I think it really can help out just in the long run. Again, when we're talking about team scores, if every little person has just a slight advantage over their competitor, again, I think that'll help the overall team result.
Yeah, and that's a great point as well. Knowing when to make your move, knowing when to settle into the pack,
Yeah.
all those things can certainly play a role in how well you perform in the results.
Totally.
So looking at previewing the meet, who are you
Sure.
expecting to have a standout race, and what's going to be the most important factor in getting the team a good result on both the men's and the women's side?
Yeah, I mean, I think headlines for our team would really be, obviously, we talk about Rachel pretty much every week on this podcast, and her defending her title, I think, is going to be one of those things that we're all going to be looking forward to. But I know Endicott has a stud rookie. She's a current sophomore, but it's her first year running. I know that she's going to compete. She's going to contend up there, and so I'm hoping that Rachel, Carolyn, even Caroline and Kimmy, or Kaylee, excuse me, I guess, and Kimmy. I think our top 5 on the women's side, they're all ready to have their best race. And Rachel's already had some great performances. I think Carolyn her best performance is still ahead of her. And again, her being on her home course, I think it's just going to help her out even more. On the men's side, we had Jesse on last week, and it's great to see him. But again, he's a freshman, and this will be his first conference championship. And so hoping that he can kind of keep that momentum going. But again, if you look at our roster, Jesse's been running well, but I look at guys like Colin and Zach Smith, who I know have another gear, and they haven't tapped into it yet. And so we're hoping with the taper that they truly can run a personal best on Saturday. Again, when you factor in all the things we've been talking about, home course, the fact that we're tapering, and the fact that our team should just feel really comfortable. We've ran this course so many times. We've had 2 races here already this year. I think that that's going to bode well, like I said, for those guys like Colin, Phil Kay, Zach Smith, those guys that still haven't PR'd but have kind of been chipping away at it all year. Previewing the conference championship as a whole, the great thing about the CCC is that when it comes to a team competition, year to year, anybody can win it. So far, Suffolk on the men's and women's side has looked really strong. Even Roger Williams looks incredibly deep. Endicott looks really strong, especially on the women's side. But Wentworth, we went toe-to-toe with them at our home meet earlier in this year. And so it's kind of like you're really going to have to show up on the day. And I think that's what's great about the CCC. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to come here is that, I don't think that there's a clear, I'm sure there's a favorite, but I don't think that there's it's lock and key right now. I think it's really, like I said, you're going to have to go out and compete, and anybody can go out and win it. So, we've won a few races already. We're hoping to win the race this Saturday.
No doubt. All right. Well, as always, thank you all for listening, and we will be back next week to recap what happens in conference.